Welcome to Module 1 of English 101. The skills you pick up in this section are the foundation for everything else we do during this term. The fundamentals of essay writing are not that complicated, but they can be reworked an infinite number of ways. Once you have mastered the basics, you can keep going for the rest of your life. And simple patterns that you may have picked up in your previous education may be too simplistic for what you want to do. Since this is the first module that you're doing, please note the buttons on this Canvas page. Although they are also labeled, just remember that the red circle lists all the assignments that must be turned in. The square lists concepts and lists the objectives you're dealing with. The blue X is what got you to this video and functions as the introduction to every module. Finally, the green triangle lists all of the readings you need to do. This is the navigation system we will be using for every module over this term. Now, let's get started. Okay, let's get into what this module is all about. This module is about argumentation. Why argumentation? Because in academic writing, this is one of the types of knowledge that you must acquire. There are a lot of different English courses that focus on a lot of other things. There's a lot of creative writing courses, but this course focuses on the specific academic skill of writing the argumentative essay. Why argument? Well, academic knowledge divides into two categories: information that must be understood and information that you must convince someone of. It's a broad division of your math and English classes in one very, very simplistic version. Okay. The first is what you learn in your science and math courses. Y equals mx plus b. The Krebs cycle produces 34 ATP. No one argues these things. They're either true or they're false. It's as simple as that. This is why you can have tests that ask very specific, direct questions like this in some of your classes. In the second, we must convince others of a point of view. If you say that Abraham Lincoln was the greatest American president and that he held the Union together, that might seem very obvious to you, but there are other people who would probably disagree with you. You're going to have to convince them that you are right. And this is where the traditional essay type exam comes in. You must prove your side of the story. These two types of knowledge often end up overlapping, okay? As you move on in your education, you'll suddenly notice that the fact that you hate writing and love science suddenly has a huge component, a written component to it. And when you move on in your English courses, you suddenly have all of these factual elements that you have to throw in. So eventually they do overlap. Should we try chemotherapy for our 98-year-old patient? As a doctor, you come in there with a body of knowledge that tells you what might work and what might not work. But at the end of the day, it's a choice of what to do. And that choice is going to have to be made by the people who get to do that. And you're going to have to present an argument for which is the best potential decision. Okay. All right, we got an argument. What do we need now? Well, first of all, we need an assertion, a claim, a point, or even just an opinion. I'm leery about saying opinion because then everybody ends up writing I think or I believe, which you can't do. But anyway, William G. Perry calls this bull for obvious reasons in one of your readings. Why obvious? Well, imagine all the times you've been stuck in a situation where you really don't have the right answer, so you just throw out something, an assertion, in the hope that it's right. Perry calls that bull. So there's your bull. Next, we go to what we traditionally think of as being the academic component, which is evidence. You need evidence that supports that claim. Perry calls that cow. Yay. Okay. So we have an assertion, a claim, and then we have evidence that goes with it. Okay. But that's not the entire argument. Let's take a break here. This stuff is easy. No, it's not. The problem is getting the evidence to actually match the argument. For this, we need something called warrant reasoning, or an explanation is an easier way of doing it. Perry calls this stuff steer. Okay, it's what holds everything together. And notice the giant horns here to hold it all together. Okay, the steer explains how the evidence supports the assertion or claim. Okay, to have an effective essay on the most basic level, you must have bull, cow, steer. An assertion, a claim, or an argument, evidence to support that assertion, claim, or argument, and then some means of explaining how the evidence supports the claim, assertion, argument. Let's start off with the most basic level of that. What is an assertion? It's what the entire essay will try to persuade someone of. Okay? If I say Magic Mountain is located in Santa Clarita, what's the argument? How much more can I possibly say about it? Think about it. If you actually tried to write this essay, you would run out of stuff to say in about 3 sentences. Right after that, you would have to start coming up with new things. And in those new things, you'd probably throw in an argument. If you stayed away completely from an argument, you would have a very, very factual set of sentences, and you would run into the essay that's less than a half a page long. Okay? Whenever someone tells me that they cannot write an essay long enough, the usual reason is because they lack a claim or an argument. If I say Magic Mountain is better than Disneyland, we're off to the races, aren't we? Because now we've got a whole bunch of people who are going to sit there and go, no, it's not. And some people who will say, yes, it is, and give me some evidence to back this up. Okay? So let's look at what makes an actual thesis. Okay? A thesis is the statement inside your essay that carries that assertion or claim. It's the argument. Okay? And it consists of 2 parts. Part number 1 is the assertion or claim, okay? That's the part that tells you what you want to say. Magic Mountain is the greatest theme park. That's arguable, it's a claim. The other part of the thesis is some means of limiting that claim, okay? In this case, it's because of the speed of the rides. We're not going to talk about the fantastic food at Magic Mountain. I realize that's a joke. We're not going to talk about how clean the place is. Again, another joke. We're not going to talk about how fantastic the theming is. We're not going to talk about any other things. All we're going to talk about is the rides. And that lets us limit the topic to something we can tackle in a short essay. So we have an assertion or a claim and some means of limiting it. For many of you coming from prior educational experience, you were told that the best way to limit your essay was a list. There are 3 reasons why, kind of a setup. There's nothing wrong with that approach. However, it is very limiting. Just imagine yourself trying to break up with someone in a traditional 5-paragraph essay, 3 supporting points way, and you can see how limiting that statement is. Okay, so I prefer to say some means of limiting that claim. Okay, all right. Now we have a thesis, and there's plenty of exercises and examples that you'll go through as you go through this module to get you squared away on that. Now we have our thesis. Next, we need to move on to evidence. Okay. Evidence is what separates an essay from the rantings of people on social media. So the poor guy on the left, he's ranting. Evidence backs up what you are arguing in the claim you've made. Pretty straightforward. There are only a couple of things we need to know about evidence. 1, it has to come from a credible source. Okay? You cannot get evidence from your Uncle Bob, although he is a wonderful person. Next, it has to be enough to make the case that you are trying to make. So sometimes I have students ask me, how many pieces of evidence do I need? And I know it's a very frustrating answer, but I always say enough to make the case. It depends on what you're arguing. So you need to provide enough evidence to convince yourself at least of the point you're trying to make. And since you probably already buy the argument, go a little bit past that in order to make a minimum. Finally, you need to make sure that your evidence is correctly cited in an academic format. We have here MLA, APA, and Chicago Manual Style, otherwise known as Turabian. There are 1,000 different ways of citing material. It all kind of depends on your major. The ones I have listed are the major ones. Okay, we're not going to go over those in this module, but just as a preview, that's something you're going to have to think about. Okay. According to Theme Park Insider, Goliath is a record breaker at 85 miles per hour, easily setting the record for fastest ride in North America. Okay, so here's my evidence to back up my previous claim that Magic Mountain is a great theme park. because of the speed of its rides. I have given you the exact speed of a ride according to Theme Park Insider. Okay, so there's my evidence. Okay, now we move on to warrant reasoning, or as I like to call it, explanation. This is how you earn an A. You must explain how the evidence supports your claim. Okay, this is why you've got a lawyer sitting there. This is what lawyers do. Think about a court case. The prosecutor is presenting the evidence. Okay, the defense attorney is not disputing the evidence directly, but simply saying that the interpretation of the evidence is incorrect. Okay, so the two sides are basically arguing about what the evidence means. That's warrant reasoning to a T. A good explanation can take the argument to the next level to where it is accepted as a given by others. There are famous essays that have changed people's opinions about the world. So this is very, very powerful stuff, but it all lies in this last section of explanation. Okay. Warrant reasoning or explanation begins with the assertion. Okay. So we go back to our thesis. We then go on to the evidence. And now we get to how we explain that evidence back to the assertion. So if you look at it this way, the line from the evidence doesn't go to the assertion directly, it goes to the explanation. And then the explanation, along with the evidence, goes back to the assertion. Okay? So what you're doing is you're explaining how the evidence supports the claim that you're making. Let's go back to our Magic Mountain example. When Goliath opened, it was the world's tallest and fastest roller coaster. Its insane speed keeps it in that special category of crazy coasters that Magic Mountain has the best collection of. This is why Magic Mountain is the best theme park in America. So I have provided a claim, Magic Mountain is the best theme park. I have provided evidence, Goliath goes 85 miles an hour, and now I'm explaining why going 85 miles per hour makes this the best theme park in America. Yes, it's an extremely simplistic example, but it does the job. Okay? That's it. Everything else we do starts with this first step. Make sure you understand this first step before moving forward to the next module. So as you go through the rest of this module, you will be doing work on how to do an assertion, how to provide evidence, and finally how to explain that evidence. Everything else builds up from these fundamental building blocks. Thank you.